Hi everyone and welcome to Choice the Extension Liberator series. And today we have with us a very special guest, Sylvia Puentes. I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly, Sylvia.
Got it. Yes.
Welcome to the call, Sylvia. I am so happy to have you on the call.
And I am so delighted to be here. I really am. Thank you for the invitation and just thank you for the willingness to step out and share so many wonderful people around the world choosing more in their lives. So I'm delighted, so delighted to be a part of that.
What can I say? I just love access, and every time I meet people, I go, "Wow, they have so much to share." And who else can I have? Who else can I have coming on? So, so Sylvia, I just love the topic you've chosen, inspiring the generosity of joyful living. So, I mean, take each word by itself, it would be like, I think like a day topic by itself.
Yes.
So, so talk about what is generosity and what is joyful living.
So it's interesting, for when you asked me what title, you're right. There's just so much I'm aware of that it's like I want to share it all. And so for me, generosity is one of the things, and the reason I actually chose that word is that many of the times we're holding back so much of who we are and what we know and who we be, that it's really this invitation. It's like, would people be more willing to be more of that, to share more of who they are? So the generosity, it's like, wow, what if we didn't have to contain it? What if we didn't have to hide it? And so that's generosity for me, just the willingness to share it. And this sense of sometimes that so many of us have thought that if I give something all the way, then I won't have any. So that sense is like, what if that's not true? What if there's a sense of the generosity and the willingness to share it, be more of you, actually contributes to, I don't know, for me, it's like my interesting point of view is that what if we could really create a joyful planet? And so it's like, for me, it's like, wow, what if that space of generosity and being willing to be more can create that? And the energy of joyful living, for me, it's like enjoying all of it. It's like from the moment you wake up, it's like, I don't know about you, Nolifer, but for me, there's moments when I wake up and I do hear chatter, and all of a sudden it's kind of my to-do list, and then I remind myself, like, huh, the gift of the Access Consciousness tools is that you have something to put in place. So, wow, it could be as simple as like, wow, how does it get any better than this? And starting off your day all of a sudden with that can open up so much. How do you start your day, Nolifer?
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that because I actually for a long time start my day by writing down five new things I'm grateful for today. And that really was like, it gave me that energy of, oh my God, I have so much. And,
Yeah.
just that energy of gratitude for having all of that.
Yes, you had Dr. Claudia Cano on
Oh my
not
God.
too long ago, and the energy of gratitude that she is very inspiring, and I'm really lucky I get to actually work with her on a weekly basis. But we do a Spanish radio show, and but that space of gratitude, just like you said, is so um, yeah, it's like if you're in a heaviness or you're feeling contracted any time in your day, if you go into the space of gratitude, and it could be for the glass of water you have, it could be for the lights that turned on. I mean, just find anything, it will change the energy. And so that is something that I hadn't acknowledged until maybe 3 weeks ago. I was on a hike and I was walking, and all of a sudden I was looking at the trees, and I was looking at the sky and the clouds and the birds, and I'm all, oh wow, like I'm in total gratitude. And I almost was moved to tears because like I had never acknowledged how much I live in the space of gratitude. And I wonder how much that contributes to really living a joyful life. Um,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's the invitation. It's like, wow, what would it take to just be grateful for the little things, and how much would that change, the rest of your life?
Yeah, and the other thing is, I find myself, going suddenly like noticing, oh my God, I'm happy, and it's not like that manic kind of happiness, but it's more like that sense of joyful peace in my universe, and and it's almost like, wow, there's no reason for this. It's not like, I achieved X, Y, Z and then I got to be happy. But it's just I'm happy. And and also the other part of it is that when I then go to a space of, feeling, whatever, the
Yeah.
lovely, part of this reality, whatever, I can say, oh, maybe I'm just aware of somebody else. And what would it take for me to just be joyful again?
Yes, and using the access consciousness tools, really, these tools are meant to empower people to know what they know and to stay in the question. That gift right there, that whenever we perceive this heaviness in our life, it's like really being the question, it's like, huh, I wonder if this belongs to me. That's huge. Because you begin to question everything you're perceiving, whether it's a thought or an emotion or a feeling. And it may be yours, but what if you could ask and go, wow, does this belong to me? And what if, you could begin to perceive if it's light, then it's not yours. It almost, even the question itself will have it's an interesting energy, but it kind of falls away. And you're like, oh, I feel more space, And then when you go, truth, does this belong to me? It's still kind of heavy. There's more questions to ask, right? So truth, am I perceiving? Am I being aware of some? Just like you said, and it's like being in the question of itself has empowers you to know that you can change it to be aware and not buy it as yours. And I know that for me, years before Access, I've been using the tools now for maybe 3 years. But before Access, I would wake up, or you'd hear me say things like, "Oh, I feel so bad," like, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that," or "Why didn't I say that?" Like I was always doubting what I was thinking, what I was choosing, second guessing myself, and it's so much more less now. Like really being willing not to judge me and go, okay, maybe not my best choice. What else is possible? What can I do now to change this? Gives me so much more space to live more from this joyful living that I do. And the piece about inspiring, oh, go ahead. Was there something?
Yeah, what you were saying is who does it belong to? And in a lot of interactions I've been having with people, it's almost like a lot of times we even use the tools of access with a conclusion attached to it.
Yes.
So we've kind of decided what who does it belong to means, and then we, ask the question and we say, oh, it's not that. But what if there was much more to it than we have ever considered, you know?
Yes.
And it's like I was facilitating a foundation level one recently, and I had to drive about an hour every day to get to Dubai where it was happening. And on the second, third day, as I was driving, I just found that I just was almost getting like knocked off. Like I was feeling so sleepy while driving that it was incredible, that level of sleepiness, and I just could not be in my body. So I was going to the question of who does it belong to, and I kept asking it and kept asking it, and it just didn't, kind of lighten up. But I was just using the tools. What is this? What can I do with it? Can I change it? How can I change it? And then on the fourth day, we came to a point where, one of the women in the class, she was like, I'm just not in my body. And the moment she said that, I went, oh my God, that was what I was aware of while I was driving.
Yes. And thank you for sharing that, because that really is a sense of one, continuing to be in the question, right? And when you do get the information, it might not be right away. So it's not about getting the answer. Who does it belong to? Oh, my grandmother, right? It's not so much that, but it's really perceiving the energy. And it'll feel light when you
And
finally,
also,
yes.
and also, not only perceiving the energy, but also willing to be in the question. And like, as I was driving, obviously, I just can't fall asleep on the wheel, right? It's not going to work for me. But being in the question, what's going to work for me? What's going to make this ease for me? Oh, I need to drink some water, drink the water. Maybe I just need to talk to myself so that I'm awake, or I need to choose something or some. So, continuously being in the question. So, on one level, I'm asking for the awareness of what this is. And on the other hand, I'm also asking for this to be ease for my body. Body, what would it take for us to be ease with this? And it's like so many people, they've been in access, and then I get these emails, I've been using the tools of access and it doesn't work for me, and I'm like, wow, that's
Yes. And you're sharing this piece, Nilüfer, about like, wow, are we willing to have it easy? Are we willing to include ourselves in our lives? And that's exactly what you did. Because we are these incredible aware beings that we perceive so much that then we buy ourselves. But to keep you present, going, okay, what's going to work for me now? I'm aware there's this intensity, whatever it is. So beautifully said. And there's one of the tools that I use frequently when I'm perceiving an intensity, and I'm like, okay, what energy, space, and consciousness can me and my body be to have total clarity and ease with all of this?
yeah.
And this is whatever's there, and I don't have to figure it out. I'm just really inviting whatever energy is going to contribute to me, whatever my body is aware of, to have that clarity and ease. And that just creates more space, and then I can continue where I'm going, right? Whether it's driving or facilitating a class. And the other one I use a lot too is um, how much energy, or how do I do it? But it's like, that I don't know if you've done the expansion exercise on the call with people.
No, let's do it,
All
even if
right.
we've done it. It's amazing. It's one of my favorite exercises.
So there's a sense, yes. So, for the people watching and for us, you can choose to close your eyes or leave them open. So just perceive the energy that you be, and perceive your body. There you go. And then just now perceive your being, maybe about 3-5 inches all around your body. Yeah. And now expand that beyond your body, say to the four corners of the room you're in. Nice. And now just perceive that, yeah. And now expand it maybe to the entire house or building that you're in. Above, below, expanded, in front of you, behind you, all directions. Nice. And now just continue to expand it, maybe in the town that you live in. Continue. So down into the earth, up above in the sky, to the left, to the right, and all around. Yeah, and now maybe take it into all the way to the continent you're on, in every direction. And now, if you're willing, would you be willing to expand all the way around the planet? Down to the bottom of the core of the planet, above, around the whole globe. Nice. And now let's just take it out into the universe, maybe 500,000 miles above the planet, all around. And what if that space that you're perceiving is the space of you? And the gift of being able to go, wow, everything in it, including your body, is you. And what if from that space, even though it might seem a little awkward in space and you're like, oh, I can't think. Well, that's not a bad thing. But what if from that space you can go, okay, what would I like to choose now? And just maybe observe your body and go, wow, if there was any tension or heaviness, is that there or is it gone? Because your sense what is it like for you, Nilüfer?
Oh, it's just like I'm just so much more present here than I was before.
So that,
And also that level of greater ease in the body.
yes. It's
It's
almost like,
almost like, yeah, it's almost like, when you perceive the ease, then you become aware of how much there was not ease before, if you know what I mean.
yes. And it's interesting. I remember one time I had this sense of spaciness in my head early on when I was practicing the tools. I had gone into a meeting. I was working with some parents and kids, and I was in the meeting. I was like really feeling spacey. And after the meeting, I thought, wow, what was that? And I remember actually calling Dr. Dane here, the co-creator of Access Consciousness. And I said, this is what I experienced. What is that? Because in my world, I was like, something's wrong. I'm spacey. I couldn't think. And yet it was a great meeting. And he goes, well, what if that's the space of you? And I thought, wow, because that was different for me. And so what if all those things that we're calling different, weird, awkward, might be more of you than you've actually acknowledged? So if anywhere in your world, when you're being that space, and this goes to all the, I guess not just listeners, right, but viewers, um, if there's that sense like this is weird or this is too spacey, like just inviting you, like, what if that's just more of you? And just ask the questions, wow, is this just more of the energy I be that I haven't really allowed myself to experience or actually play with? Like, I like the word play because it takes away the significance of it. So yay, thank you for inviting that exercise. So how does it get any better than that? And that's one of the tools that I use. I just expand, like, how much space can I be now? How much space can me and my body have now to have total ease with all of this, whatever that might be? And then I just continue to move in my day. And that, I have a 15-year-old son, and that's one of the tools that when things are coming up and there's intensity in his world, I ask for just more space. There's nothing for me to say, nothing for me to do, many, many more times than I ever would have acknowledged in the past. And it's just really, how much space can I be? And the space, I mean, it's almost like that space contributes to the turnaround of whatever's up in his world, my world, and it's like then we move on to the next thing. And actually, that just happened this afternoon, right before I came on. So how does it get any better than that?
How does it? I have a tool I use for that, for creating more space.
Uh-huh.
And it is, what energy, space, and consciousness can I and my body be to be the energy, space, and consciousness I truly be.
Yes, awesome. And that keeps us out of the conclusion of who we think we are, right?
Absolutely.
What if it's even
And
more?
Sylvia, do you know that that clearing for being out of control, out of definition? I don't know, for some reason I just seem to be, that seems to be coming up in my universe.
Awesome. So there's many ways that it's used, but what energy, space, and consciousness can you and your body be to be out of definition, out of concentricities? Oh,
Out of form, out of structure, out of significance, out
all
of
of that,
linearity, and
all of that.
all of
And,
that.
and yeah, and what if it's just an invitation? Like, would you be willing to be undefined?
Mhm.
So everywhere that you've defined who you are, how do you react, how you're not even. There's also the other space of how you're not. Like all of those places that we've put either structure to definition, um, any of that, would you be willing to let go, even if it's just 2%? Just 2%. Sometimes the willingness to just go, okay, 2%, yes. It's like, what if it doesn't have to be all of it? What if there's no right or wrong? And if you're willing to let it all go, great. And anything that doesn't allow that times a godzillion. Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pipe, shorts, boys, and beyond. And this is the piece too that, as you know, people who are watching and listening, and so grateful that there's so many people like you sharing these tools, bringing different people to share them. It's like my invitation for people. It's like, are you willing to play with them? And what if you don't get it? There's not about getting it right or wrong. And what if it's any question, even the question of like, what question can I ask here? Like simply that question can change an energy. And so if any, I know that when I started and when I was facilitating people, they'd be like, wait, what was that question? And sometimes we get stuck on trying to figure out what the right question is. It's like, what if it could be any question, and just willing to be curious about, wait, what else is possible here? So
Yeah,
awesome.
and you know that the time when you're feeling really uncomfortable when you know something is different in your universe. What if we could go to that space of you know what would it take to change this?
Yes.
And what would it take for me to have more ease here? So
Yes.
it's like, you know, that willingness to step out of going to decisions and conclusions and judgments and going into any tool of access, literally, you know, when things are going a bit weird and wonky in my universe, I will just pick up some tool, you know, sometimes it could be as easy as what else is possible here. And
You know what
and
else I do too? Oh, is that I have so many the Access books. Sometimes it's just grabbing a book. It's like I open it up, something, because I'm not even in the space of like, I don't know, coming up with one, or I'm just like, okay, where can I get inspired? Like, what can I read? What can I listen to just tap into the energy, a different energy, that energy of possibility, that energy of creating the lives we'd really like to have. And that's one of the things that inspires me, is to see Access consciousness growing all around the world, all around the planet. It's like literally you can get these resources in different languages. It's coming to a town near you, literally all around the world.
absolutely. And talking about coming to a town near you, don't you have a level 2 and 3 happening in Mexico? Didn't
Yes.
you?
So I currently live in California. Both my parents are from Mexico. I've been part of this Spanish radio station where we talk about the tools in Spanish. And Gary is choosing to go and facilitate a class, a level 2 and 3 in Mexico City, June 13th. So it's not too late to go, June 13th. And for me, it's this invitation. It's like, wow, it's like as Gary chooses to travel around the world, it's like, what is he aware of? It's always my question. It's like, Gary has so this is Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, and he has an incredible sense of awareness. And so for me, it's like, wow, what is he aware of, that of what could change by facilitating a class in Mexico? So I'm delighted. Yes, I'm actually headed on a plane this Friday to Denver to the energetic synthesis of being that Dr. Dane facilitates. So you can also attend that. That starts Saturday, what is that, the 7th. And I'm really just delighted. My son, who's 15, is an access facilitator, and he'll be coming with me to both classes. So how much
Wow.
fun is that?
Oh my God.
So,
Yeah.
and one of the things with that is that I just continue to be an invitation. It's like, would you like to? You know, and it's like not attached, and he continues to be a yes. So, I'm excited that we'll both be in Mexico, and the class will be bilingual. Gary will facilitate it in English, and I believe at this point it's Gladia Cano who will translate it in Spanish. And yeah, how does it get any better? Curry is going to be there doing a Right Riches for You class as well. So it's really a fun event where people can come from all around the world to Mexico City to, receive the tools, awareness, and change. In the gift of the level 2 and 3 about really creating your life. Like foundation level 1, you're really clearing a lot of the energy, perceiving and becoming aware of some of those limitations and clearing that. And then level 2 has a whole different energy. It's really like, okay, now what would I like to create? And it's still only the tip of the iceberg, but for me, every time I've taken a level 2 and 3, it's almost like the sense like the cake just gets longer and wider. Like, where to now?
You know,
Um,
I remember the first time I took a level 2 and 3, and before that, I would try all the time to use the tool of who does it belong to. You know what they tell you to use it for 3 days, and you know they say you know so the first day you use it, you're able to use it for some time, and then you forget. And the second day you're able to use it more and more and more. And somewhere on the third day, by the middle of the day, you come to this space where you're like a walking, talking meditation with no thoughts in your head. And whenever I heard about it, I said, wow, that sounds really great, but I just couldn't do it for some reason. And I did a level 2 and 3 with Gary, which was in June of 2012. And immediately after the class, for the next, I don't know how many days, I was in this space of walking, talking meditation. And I remember thinking, wow, I just don't have any thoughts in my head.
Yeah. And so as you're saying that, one of the things that I'm aware of is that whether I'm attending a class live or whether I'm watching a class through live stream, which is becoming a greater possibility with lots of the Access classes, which means you watch it online from your comfort of your own home, and the class could be, in Amsterdam. So, or even when I'm listening to a past recording, right? One of the things I'm becoming more aware of is like, wow, there's an energy that if you're willing to perceive and receive, it's there. And it might not be so much the words that are being said, but it's the energy that we all be. And so it's like, what would it take for everybody that's watching us, listening to us, and us to continue to be, know, perceive, and receive that? And the gift of the energy that everything is. Because it's everything. So anything that doesn't allow that times a godzillion, we destroy and uncreate that. Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pod, pod, shorts, boys, and beyonds. So one of the weird things about me, if I could share, is that I enjoy playing with the molecules that I perceive. And so as I said everything, it was really the sense of like, wow, the chair, the table, the computer, the being that you be, all of it. And it's like, I say that's weird in the sense because it sounds odd maybe to some people, but it doesn't to me. And just willing to share it more and more, it's like, what if being willing to drop our bears and go, okay, if I was willing to receive more from this table, all the molecules of it, what would that give me? Or it could be a plant, and it could be, everything. And what if that willingness to receive is that gift of what will contribute to us creating more of what we'd like to have in our life? So anything that doesn't allow that for all of you, will you guys destroy and uncreate that? Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pod, pod, shorts, boys, and beyonds.
So, Sylvia, you were talking about generosity,
Yes.
and you said that it is a willingness to share. So, can you talk a little more about it? What is generosity for you?
So have you ever walked down the street and maybe seen a small child, 2, 3 year old, and all of a sudden you perceive their world, they're playing, they're carefree, and you're like, wow, it's usually easier with kids, right? You'll see them doing something, you're like, you can perceive an energy they're being. And when I look at kids, especially young little kids, like, wow, like I feel that's a generosity. They're not holding back. They're not containing themselves. They're not doing what they think is appropriate. They're just being all of them. And when I have the willingness to see that, enjoy that, and receive that, it contributes to me. It lights up my day. And then all of a sudden, I find myself smiling and I'm off on my path or walk or whatever it is. So what I'm aware of now is that there are people that are this energy in the world. Young kids are such a gift for that reason and so many more. And I'm also perceiving it from more and more people. The other day I was out and a friend introduced me to to his friend. And this young man had just graduated from college and I'd never met him before. And then all of a sudden, it was late in the evening and I started to offer rides to people because people had been drinking and it was just, I started to offer rides. It's like, and it was quite a distance, both north and south. So I started to drive people home. And I became aware at the end of the evening, I was like, wow, I actually chose to do that, not from a place of, oh, look at me, I'm such a kind, giving person. But it was really from this space of kindness that I had never acknowledged. I'm like, that's weird. Like, I'm really aware of that right now, that it was a space of kindness. And then I tapped into this young man that I had just met. He was that energy. He was such this kind, gentle energy that without words, it invited me to that. Does that make sense? And so at the end
Wow.
of it, yeah, I hadn't perceived it like that so clearly. And I actually, that evening, he texted me and he thanked me for the ride. And I thanked him. I mean, he may never know. I don't know if, I may see him again or not, but that's the gift we can all be when we're willing to be generous with the energy, space, and consciousness that we be. And so for me, it's like, wow, what invitation can I be to joyful living? Because it is something I choose in my life. And you know what? For some people, it's annoying. I have people around me that get annoyed because, yes, life is easy. Things come up, and then I choose to change them, and I can be really annoying in that way. And it's not to say that stuff doesn't come up. It does. But the speed at which I can change it now with the Access tool is quicker than I ever thought was possible. I mean, I'm in the midst of moving houses. I can show you tons of boxes to the left of me if you'd like. But I'm moving, about to complete a divorce, one more document to file. And yet I continue to choose to expand my life. It's like, well, what else would I like to add? So what if those things that are coming up in your world, whether it's with your children, whether it's work, whether it's your relationship, what if you could stay in the question and go, okay, what else is possible? When you catch yourself going into that rabbit hole, pull out some of those questions. Pull out some of Nullifer's recordings. You have a wealth of recordings to tap into. And it's like, wow, what would it take to change this? And I'm here to tell you that, yes, it can. So that's what that is for me. Was that what you were asking?
It's amazing, how one question, you ask a question and it opens up the possibility of way more than, what you thought it was going to be. It was much more than what I was asking for.
How is it going to be better than that? What other question would you like to ask?
Hold on, let me just. So when you're, in the bullet points that you gave me, you said, what if actually living your life from the joy of it inspires other people to know a different possibility? So this was you clearly perceiving that and living that. But can you talk a little bit more about it?
Yes, and it wasn't something I acknowledged before or was even aware of. And maybe about a year ago, there was a client I was seeing, and I think I'd seen her maybe about 4 or 5 times. And then one day I saw her out in town, and she said, wow, I thought of coming over to your house just to ring your doorbell to have you come out because I knew that would change my world. And I thought, wow, what is that? And some people would be like, oh, you're being conceited. And it's like, well, what if it's not? What if it's really an invitation that other people probably are willing to acknowledge us more than we are of the contribution that we be? And so as I begin to go, okay, what is it about that people perceive? And so what she was letting me know is like, Sylvia, there's an energy you be that's just space that changes my world like that. So that sense of inspiring others, I begin to see people around me choosing different things. And some people are choosing more joy in their life and are choosing to play more. And I'm willing to acknowledge that now that I am an inspiration for that. And at the same time, there's other people that choose other things, and that's okay too. But it's just the willingness to know, wow. So for our listeners or our viewers, it's like, what are you inspiring out in the world by who you be? And would we all be willing to acknowledge that we do inspire? I mean, Nullifer, with, the different shows that you've had, the summits, it's like, what are you inspiring out in the world? I mean, you're an inspiration to me. It's like, I'm sure you get, emails and people letting you know. It's like that inspiration to continue to choose more and more in the face of whatever comes up.
Yeah, so, and like I've shared this many times in my interviews, and it's like literally it was that level 2 and 3 that I went to, and Dane, he spoke about the contribution that we are being, and I started being in this question of what contribution am I being that I'm not acknowledging, and I started asking that question every single day. And what started to show up in my universe was I started getting all these emails from people, and telling me how I had changed their life. And it's also, when people are acknowledging you, are you receiving it?
Yes. Yes, because oftentimes, oh no, no, no. And so that the exercise of dropping your barriers, and it simply is, in your head, as people are saying anything, is like whether it's quote unquote positive or negative, however you want to, but it's like dropping your barriers to receive it. So yeah. And so that is what I've practiced. So when that client shared that, it was that sense, okay, I'm dropping my barriers because I could perceive this wall going up. It's like, what? And it's like, okay, I'm dropping my barriers. I mean, because how much do we dismiss the other person's awareness or experience by not receiving it? And
Yeah,
it's crazy.
and it's also, what I have seen is that sometimes when somebody is telling me something which I am really not able to receive, I actually in that moment go to question, what would it take for me to get this?
Hmm. Yeah. And with that, it's like, what if we don't have to validate it or,
Yeah.
by
What if, yeah, not try to find points of reference in our universe to validate it,
right.
you know. Yeah. And the other thing I actually wanted to talk about was when you talk about just yesterday I was talking with a friend who's also an access consciousness facilitator, and I realized I was very uncomfortable.
Hmm.
I was like, very, 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 very uncomfortable when I was talking to her. And I have been in question with that, with that energy. And what I'm perceiving is that she is being an energy that I'm unwilling to be. And at the same time, I would like to be it. And
Hmm.
I'm judging that, oh my God, I can't be it. So
Hmm.
how much is that kind of inspiration in your universe, which you are actually judging as something wrong there, instead
Yeah.
of looking at it as the gift that it is truly?
Yes. And that actually brings, thank you. I so love, like you said, right? You'll say something and inspire something else. When Gary first said, when I heard him say, you've been everything. There's not, there's, there's not anything in the world you haven't been or done. And it felt really light. So for me, it was like, if there's nothing I've ever been or done, then I can do anything. That's where I went with it. But that sense too, that sometimes we perceive an energy, whether it's in someone or something that we're not willing to receive. It may be that we've been or done that, or they're not willing to be or do that. Yes. So what would it take not to judge it right or wrong, good or bad, and just go, wow, interesting. I could choose that. Doesn't mean you have to.
No, and the thing about this energy was very interesting. I actually was being in question with it, and I realized that I was feeling contracted about it because I perceived her to be better than me.
Ah, yes.
It's that place, where you judge others that, oh my God, they're so much better and I can never be that. Whereas the choice is the real thing is that I can choose to be that. I just have to choose.
Yes. And actually, I co-facilitated early on an introduction class with another facilitator. And I recall we were facilitating, she would say something, I would say something. And there was a moment I went in my world, and I was like, oh, that was much better than mine. Or, I should just shut up. There was a sense of that. And I was like, wait, we're both two different beings. We both are a different energy space and consciousness. It's like, wow, what gift can she share? What can I share? Because it's going to be different and it's going to be received different by the people here. And so in that moment, like acknowledging that we're just a different energy, it like allowed us, I mean, the flow that we had, people were like, did you guys rehearse that? And it was like, no. But there was so much like the gratitude came in and the acknowledgement of the gift that we both were was this incredible flow. And so for me, it's like, wow, what would it take that to be everywhere, right? Even when I'm in a class with Gary, what would it take? But that sense of like, what if there is no one like you? And no one can deliver what you deliver the way you deliver it. And the gift and the contribution that is. I mean, that space of not judging ourselves, I mean, I hear it over and over. It's like, okay, today, could I judge myself less? What would it take to be out of judgment all day, and continuing? It's not like, oh, I've arrived, but that sense of like, okay, wow, today was a really light day. And that inspires people. I know that when I first met Gary, and he was up facilitating, it was an intro class out here in California, and I perceived his energy. It's like, what is that? I remember I looked at him and I looked at the audience and I thought, there's something here. I couldn't name it, but it was like, I'll have some of that. And then I think a day later, Dane came and did an intro, and I perceived his energy, which was different than Gary's. And I was like, wow, I'll have some of that. But it's like everybody has a gift. And that sense of like, not they're better and I'm less, with anyone, but it's like, if it is an energy that I would like more in a life, what if it could be, I'll have some of that. But the ease in their worlds that I perceive of not judging them for what they say or what they do, it's like, I'll definitely have more of that. And that contributes to a joyful living. When you're out of judgment, when you know you have choice, when you know that you can create your life, that contributes to a joyful living. So what would it take for all our viewers and anyone else that can tap into the energy? What would it take not to judge you? Ever. Are you willing to be that different? Are you willing to be judged even for not judging yourself? Because it's almost a judgeable offense when you don't judge you. They're like, hey, right? So would you be willing? And even if it's just 2%, and then you can build that up or not. So anything that doesn't allow that, whatever that is for you, yeah, right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pod, shorts, boys, and beyonds. Nice. I was the energy of destroy and uncreate, and I didn't say that, but would you be willing to destroy and uncreate all of that?
Yes, yes, yes.
So what else? So there was
So,
a, go ahead.
let me ask a question from one of our listeners.
Yeah.
Hi, when it comes to choosing for me, I feel as if I'm excluding others. Like if I choose for me, I'm cutting them off, being self-centered, betraying others. Um, what am I not getting that creates and maintains this?
Okay.
How do I choose joyful living from here?
Thank you for your question. So my first question would be, what were the words you used? Self-centered. And
Betraying
so some of the
others.
words, yeah, so that self-centered, and some people would say greedy, egotistic. Those, when you say those words, are they light or are they heavy? The energy of those words, light
Very
or
heavy.
very heavy. So what if they're a lie? So like, what if those words are a lie and they've actually been used to control us? So so that would be first. It's like, would you be willing to perceive the energy of the words and go, maybe it's not true? And then second, as I continue to choose things in my life, one of the questions that I've been using a lot is, truth, if I choose this, what will my life be like in 5 years? And I perceive the energy. And then I pock and paddle that. And then I ask the other side, kind of to truth, if I don't choose this, what will my life be like in 5 years? And I've been using that through my divorce process, and it's been an incredible tool. Because sometimes I think I should blah, blah, blah. And it's like when I ask that question, so truth, what will my life be like in 5 years if I choose this? And when I choose what feels lighter and more expansive, that's the energy that shows up. So what if you could perceive the energy, and it's not about excluding or including, but it's about perceiving the energy of what's going to create the most there. And also the other question too is, if I choose this, what will that create?
So, recently I had to make choice about something, and I was really in this space of, am I being self-centered or what, blah, 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 whatever, because I was looking at a choice I was making and I was judging that it would not be so great for my husband and my kids. So until one day I just had this question pop up in my universe. if I choose this, what will their life be like in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years time? So, if when I asked what will my life be like in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, obviously it was expansive. But when I asked that question about what will their life be like in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, the energy was way more expansive than before. And I was like, oh my goodness, I've been judging that, it's going to create a contraction in the universe, and look at the expansiveness there. And then it was a no-brainer. I said, I'm doing this.
Yes, and I actually recall hearing Gary say this, and I asked him one time in a class. It's like when we ask that question, truth, if I choose this. So we start with truth, right? Truth, if I choose this. It's not like, oh, if I blah, 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 because you're already concluding that you're going to do that. So you want it to be truth. If I choose this, what will my life be like in 5 years? It actually does include everyone. It's not you and your life per se. It's everything. Because your choice creates a reality. So every time you choose something, it creates something. It includes everyone. I mean, everyone and everything. I'll say that one more time. Everyone and everything. And so the gift of putting it out 5 years, it's really to perceive the energy. And so when I first started to use this tool, I thought, oh, it's me, my life, and what I'm going to, and it's like, oh, no, it's much greater than that. So for the person that asked the questions, it's like, try using that tool. And what if you could be kind with you too? And what if there is a choice that may not seem like it contributed, or it created something you didn't wish it to create? What if you could be kind with you and go, okay, not my best choice. What else? But that space of kindness and that space of not judging you, it's what's going to gift you choosing and working more and more with these questions and tools to create a greater life. So that was a lot there, but I hope that was helpful, some of those tools. Great.
Absolutely. And you were about to say something when I went into asking this question, if you remember it in this 10 seconds.
Yes, well, that wasn't no. It's so funny. I talk about inspiration, and I remember one time I thought, and a couple years ago, and I was like, wow, who inspires me? And it's like there wasn't a lot of people in my world that I felt inspired by. And when I started Access, I was really inspired by Gary and Dane, and their willingness to continue to choose. And I'm just now, as we're speaking, going, wow, who inspires me now? There is so many more people. And what I'm aware of too, Nullifer, and this is the weird piece, but this is the piece, it's like, I'm actually inspired by me. And it's like, would you, listeners, be willing to be inspired by you? By the courage you have to play with these weird and wacky tools. If you've attended a class, that takes courage, and, so it's like, would you be willing to inspire you by what you're choosing, by what you're willing to look at, by just the gift that you are on this planet? It's like that space of being willing to be inspired by you. I mean, if we had a planet of people willing to be inspired by them, I think it would be a different planet. No matter what you do, you could work in a grocery store, you could, be a gardener, you could be a teacher, you could be a famous rock star, whatever. But it's like, wow, if you're willing to be inspired by you and what you choose, I say bring it on. So I don't know if that's what I was going to say, but that's what showed up.
Oh my God, but that is so amazing, because it's again, you go to this place of judgment because you are not being inspired by you.
Yeah.
And when you have that gratitude for you, when you have that inspiration about you, when there is gratitude, there is no judgment. Because again, when you look at it, the energy of inspiration is actually an energy that you see plus gratitude. Like in your case, you saw the kindness that this young man was being, and you were in gratitude that you.
I
So, so that's inspiration, gratitude plus.
yeah,
I like
gratitude.
it, gratitude plus.
Yes, I'll have more of that every day. Yes, yes, definitely. And what would it take to have more of that on this planet?
What would it take? What would it take?
There was another question that I had written down, some of the bullet points that I had written down, and it's um, what if you could choose to be happy again and create the life and living you would like to have? Would you choose it? And the word again in that question, would you be willing to choose to be happy again? So everywhere that any of you bought that you're not a happy person, that you've never been happy, would you be willing to destroy and uncreate that? Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, POD, POC, shorts, boys, and beyond. And all the definitions you have about what happy means or doesn't mean, would you be willing to destroy and uncreate that? Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, POD, POC, shorts, boys, and beyond. And what if the energy of happiness is actually an energy you be? You've always been. So if in this moment you can just kind of go, it's like, when was the last time I was truly, truly happy? Just ask yourself, wow, when was that for you? Maybe it was this morning, maybe it was yesterday, maybe it was 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago.
Or maybe it was 100 million years ago.
Right. Right. So, and I know when I was first asked that question, grateful for that question because I had never asked myself, right? And I literally perceived the energy of going back to a young little girl. And I thought, really? Has it been that long since I've chosen happiness? And it brought tears to my eyes because there was a sadness and it was almost like the sadness of my body, like going, wow, can we have more of that, please? And it was like, but to have the awareness, well, it really has a long time. What would it take to have more of that? What would it take to have more of that today? And then again today, and more of it today. And then just see what shows up. And sometimes it's not until late, days later, a week later, it's like, oh my gosh, like you said, right? I'm happy. You don't even know when it started or that it was never there. You're just more of you. And that's the gift of the tools and the classes is that you just it's almost like things clear and things lift that you tend to almost forget that you had or were, if that makes sense. But someone asked me, it's like, what'd you get out of, the 2 and 3? It's like, oh my gosh, I hadn't really thought about it. I'm just more me. And it's almost sometimes hard to define and share with words what I've actually gotten out of classes or the tools. But I know that my life has much more space with all the things that I do and choose, and less judgment that allows me to have more of that joyful living. So, what
And
would it
then
take?
and the other question is what change has occurred that you've not acknowledged?
Yes, thank you. Oh, I'm going to write that one down. Yes.
And I remember in one of the classes that I did with Dane, and this is, I mean, I don't remember exactly, but it was like, what change has occurred that you've not acknowledged? What choices are available now that were not available before? What possibilities are available now that you haven't yet chosen?
Yes.
So it's really, when you go through that change and you start acknowledging what has shown up and start asking for more of that to show up.
Yes. So those are beautiful questions. So I invite everyone to write those down. Those are great. Yes. It
And
just
it is
depends.
like it's there somewhere in my eye brain. If I can pull it up, I will kind of send it out in the email.
Yes, please. Because it really is those questions. And it's like every day, being that young child going, wow, wonder how it's going to show up today. The other question I love so much is like, universe, show me something beautiful.
Oh wow, that is, yeah, that is.
And that one, it's like all of a sudden I feel like I'm on a treasure hunt. Where? And it's like people, say, well, aren't you lonely? Or it's like, I'm never lonely. I'm never alone. With all the tools and the universe showing me beautiful things, it's like, it's a huge playground. So what would it take to have more of that? So lots of questions to ask.
So this has been such an amazing conversation, and we were being as scatty as we truly be. We've been going all over the place from here to there to there to there. But what I am aware of is that there's this energy, the joy of peace and the peace of joy that I am just being in this moment. So thank you so much for that.
You're so, so, so welcome. And thank you,
And
yeah, for
and
everything that you chose.
and so before we, I'm getting emotional here. So before we finish this conversation, uh, what a, what is something that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Hmm. What if it's not as hard as you've been making it? And would you be willing for it to be easy? And that's the gift of the Access tools. So just start with one question. And for me, it's like, what if it could be play? And just start. So that's it. And I look forward to, hearing stories about people choosing more of that in their life. Because I know for me, someone asked me once, what is it that you know, Sylvia? And I know that it's a possibility that to live a joyful living, to have a joyful planet, I do. I know it. So that's who I be out in the world. And so I look forward to hearing about those joyful adventures from people. And when it doesn't feel joyful, know that you have simple, wacky tools to use. So how does it get any better than that?
How does it? How does it? So thank you so much, Sylvia. It's been just a joy to have you on the call. And thank you so much for our listeners who've been listening in live and who've been listening to our replays, and to all the people who've been sending the questions. Like, your questions are such a contribution, and it just, opens up so many things for so many people. So thank you so much for that. And join us again next week when I talk to Vanita Subramaniam, and we're talking about leadership and being a leader in your own world and what that is like. So thank you once again, and
Thank
have a great day. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye, Sylvia.
Thank you. Bye.